And today we're going to be talking about building an offense based on series football. A lot of young coaches, they collect plays, as if this is a cool play. They'll send me stuff and they'll say, "What do you think about this?" And I say, "Well, that's good, but what are you going to run with it?" And I'm not being critical, but you need to understand that you have to set the defense up. So we're going to be talking today about designing an offense based on series football. All right, designing an offense based on series football. What do you need? And I've already mentioned it. I mentioned it in my intro. You need a base play. Whether it's the zone, okay, whether it's old school lead, okay, if you're a spread team, you're going to run the inside zone, outside zone, okay. A lot of people make them where they look alike, so they're in the same family, okay. And you may want to have a counter or misdirection off that. If you're running, like you've got the wing T guys run the belly and then have the wing back counter coming back, okay, or the tail halfback counter coming back, little zero counter back up the gut with a tackle trap, okay. Your spread teams are going to run a lot of GT counter, okay, off their zone look. All right, there's got to be a base play in order to have a offense based on series football. And you can have multiple series. Don't get me wrong. I'd say 3 or 4 is good. The smaller level you go, like the rec leagues and the junior high, you can run probably 1 series. And I'll show you a great one that we used to do back in the 90s when I stepped away from the varsity because of some family issues and went down and coached junior high. And we ran the rocket. At the time, we called it the fling, and that was the whole offense. Everything was off the rocket. The only thing that was not technically off the rocket, but it looked like the rockets when we ran option because we were in the spread bone look. And so that motion was very similar to the defense. And it was basically one package. Everything came off that rocket motion. But you got to have a base play. You got to have a counter or misdirection of some kind off the base play. And then you got to have play action pass, which could be a boot or it could just be a play action pass to make for a good series of football. Okay? But understand this. Running a misdirection or reverse off a play that you don't run as a staple play, that is not going to stress the defense as much as you think. It's just not going to. Because first off, all of a sudden you just get in a different formation and you run a reverse or a counter or some kind of misdirection. Well, you haven't set them up. You got to set them up by running your base play. Some coaches talk about constraint plays, keep them from hitting that base play in the head. You've got some kind of counter or pass off of it that constrains the defense to keep them from just pinning back their ears and teeing off. All right, you got to think of it. It's like scaffolding. We always did this too. Like in football, I would call this small to big. You start small, like you teach them one part of the block, then you go to the next part, the next part, the next part, and then you finish. Remember I was talking about with our zone series, how to teach the blocking. Start out with a fit drill, and you're teaching them just one part of the block, and then after 3 or 4 drills, you got the whole block in. That's kind of like scaffolding for the offense, though. Okay? You put in your base play, and you build from there. All right, so down here at the bottom, you got your foundation. Folks, you're not going, if you go out and you build a house, and you start with the roof, you just put your poles up on the side, your corners, and then you put all your roof up first, okay, your trusses, and then come back and try to put in your foundation, you're screwed. What kind of sense does that make? It's the same thing with football. There's certain rules of life that are rules of life. All right, so each play builds on the previous play. Okay, so you got your base play down here. Then you got your counter. Then you got your boot and your play action pass. And then once you get these mastered, and believe me, you don't want to go on. If your base play in your series is going to be inside zone, don't go to counter until you got the zone down. Don't put in the boot until you got the base and the zone and the counter down. And then you put your PAP in. And some coaches rather have the play action pass before the boot. That's fine. And some coaches, if you don't have an athletic quarterback, But a guy with a good arm, you may want to not have a boot. The boot and the PAP kind of go together. But definitely, you don't put the roof on before you build your foundation. And TP, that's the roof. Trick play. I mean, kids love trick plays. Coaches love trick plays. They break the monotony. Good thing, 5 minutes, end of the day. Work on your trick play for the week. Or work on a different trick play every day and just have them in your arsenal as you go through. But remember the 3 musts when you're scaffolding this thing. Going back to what I started with. You got to have a base play. Okay? Whether it's trap, buck, inside zone, belly. You got to have a play you start from. You got to have a counter or misdirection if you're going to do a series. You got to stress the defense. You really want to stress linebackers, and you want to stress perimeter people by making everything look alike as long as possible. And then you got your play action pass / your boot, and then you move on to your trick plays. But you got to have these 3 things. You don't have to have a trick play.